Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to yet another edition of Lambom Show. Today is Wednesday, October 12th, 2022, and I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C. With me on set, as always, on Wednesdays, it's the Honorable Ed Okpa. And for those who are meeting Ed for the first time, he doesn't like this, but I think it's proper to say he's a Nigerian American, and that's one of the arguments he makes here is he left Nigeria and came here to become an American. Italians, Irish people leave Europe and come to America and become white people. We leave Africa, come here, and we are something else. But that's a conversation we're going to take on some other day. But today we wanted to broach a couple of topics. First, last week, Ed wrote something which, as usual, is always provocative, and he's talking about the presence of Nigerians in the US. He titled it Blood Does Not Lie. And I think his basic argument is that Nigerians are physically present in the US, but their presence is not making any difference. And I want to give him the opportunity to expatiate on that. And then after that, we'll talk about, again, something that I brought up to you. The World Bank and IMF are having their annual meetings here in Washington, D.C. That started on Monday. And as usual, there are finance ministers, central bank governors, and academicians, international development experts all over the world, 190 countries. At least Africa is part of that mix. The Okpa has a different take as to what is happening with the role of the World Bank. So Okpa, let's start off with the article on Nigeria. What is your beef? If I may call it a beef, what is the problem? Because you seem to indicate that since after the Biafran War, 52 years, Nigerians have been migrating, but they have a large presence, and it's seemingly
they are largely present, but no presence. Presence and present are two different things. But go ahead.
Yeah. So again, I find that kind of strange because I think of all the immigrant communities in the United States, Nigerians are one of the most powerful blocks. I don't know of any other outside the Nigerian community. And you yourself, you are a testimony to that because you left Nigeria, you are present here, and I think you have a presence.
Well, again, thank you for this weekly conversation. As you already know, I write to provoke and not to appease. I don't write love letters. I say it the way I say it, and hopefully it triggers conversation because obviously people are like, what the heck is he talking about? But let's I say 52 years because I want to give the benefit of that. The first Nigerian that was recorded to come to America was 1914. Okay, so that's more than a century. So they're not, but I said, okay, after the war, the first Nigerian president, went to school here, came in the 1920s, 2022, Azikiwe. He was there,
Howard University.
Yeah, and all of that, so that Nigeria has been coming. And, if you look at the American immigration, back in the 40s, they started having quota. Depending on the number of people from your country, they will not decide how many are going to let in. But continuously, there's no decade since 1918 that a Nigerian didn't come to America. But the bulk of Nigerians came after the war. My father-in-law actually got his master's degree from UCLA, back in the 50s. And so because my wife was born here, born in US. But what I was saying is that when you look at immigrants and how immigrants come in here and they settle, they do it by zip code. They do it by census tract. When you get a census tract, census tracts make up a zip code. So usually they look at where people live. So if you go to any city in America and say, okay, where are Nigerians? It's harder to go to a street. Forget the businesses. It's harder to go to a residential neighborhood and say, oh, here are, this street is dominated by this number of Africans or Nigerians, they're there. Those who live in an apartment that, usually, is not given any sort of measure, significant measure, but when it's homes. So that's the question. So when you look at census tracts, and then, for me saying this, I was a member of the 2000, uh, 2000 complete count census. So I know how those data, how they measure it, how they gather it, and they begin to say, okay, Nigerians are here, these people are here, these people are there. But if you look at the Asian community, you have the Chinatowns, you have the Korean this, you have this, and then in that community, they also have their businesses. You go to Chinatown, what do you have? Lambert, there are about 200 Asian controlled banks in America, and of all the black people in America, you know how many we have? 19. 19. And our population is 45 million people, including African Americans and us. But the Asian community is not that many, but they have this significant business enterprise. And they have been able to, find a way to get into the American, both political and corporate and all kinds of ways, because they are organized, they are focused, and they do that. For us, most Africans are on this two-timing immigration thing. I want to go take a village title. I want to build a house in my village. I want to blah blah blah. Wanting to eat their cake and have it. So I mean, that can pull people's attention apart. So that's what I'm saying is that yes, Nigerians graduate if you go to graduation. Because you have, that's what it is. We graduate, but once the paper is handed to us, how many businesses are we creating out of that? How are we making progress in corporate America, or even in our own community? Do we have a Nigerian community bank? Do we have a Nigerian credit union? Do we have a Nigerian zip code or the census tract we dominate? Or you go to any particular corridor and say, hey, majority of the businesses are owned by Nigerians. So it's just that's going to school, which is fine. That's what we know. That's what we do. But America, after you graduate, after 10 years after your graduation, America don't want to see that degree anymore. They want to see what have you done with it. They don't want to see your CV is good 10 years after you left school. After 10 years is your resume. And that resume start to see whether you have remained in the same career, whether you have gone, done something else. And because you don't go to a 40, 60-year-old man and say, let me see your degree. I mean, come on, you would have done something in life, with whatever knowledge you have, and you keep learning and you keep growing with it. So and then apart from that, is also our lifestyle. You've been to Nigerian parties or African parties. If you just stand in that room and look at any 100 group of Nigerians, how many of them are slim looking? 70 or 80% of them are going to look like, people who just swallowed an elephant. I mean, no, is if you don't have, this is not a scientific anything. You just look around, you look at the women, you look at the men. You could see that either they swallowed an elephant or they swallowed a pig. And because they have not changed their lifestyle. And then their kids followed in that direction. So you even look at people born here because they watch their parents. What food do they eat at home? A lot of them begin to revolt to that food once they leave home, because now when they're in college, they are no longer eating moi moi or eating jollof rice or eating eba. They have to go to the what they can find on the Greater American community. But so what I'm just saying is those things are evident. They come to you by observation. So I'm just saying, at what point, even though in a sociological study, they said it takes 90 years, 3 generations to change the attitude of a particular people. Because the first people that came, in their first day, I'm still holding on to something. The second one maybe holding a little bit. The third one does like, forget you, I'm not part of this. So if you see Nigerians like my son and my daughter, heck no, they ain't gonna wear cap. They ain't gonna wear those flowery things, that Nigerians. They're not gonna go there. Now there's some Nigerians that will do that, born here, but majority are gonna pull away. Okay, and then your own grandchildren are, some of them might, some of them will, again, you see how the percentage begin to change and shift. The attitudes start to change. So I'm just saying, if the first generation don't make the effort to see, hey, they say when you're in Rome, be like the Romans. In fact, you should even be better than the Romans. That's when you're going to stand out. Because if you are below the Romans, they won't notice you. If you're average, won't, you know what I mean? So you have to do something start to stand out, and not to prove anything to them, but to say, hey, I understand this system. You know what I always tell people? If Obama's father was in his life, he would never have been president of America, because he would have been preaching Kenya, you are Kukuyi, you are Olu, you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff, and confuse the child. So that's what. But other immigrants came. Remember, other immigrants came from somewhere, 400 years ago or something. But anyway, that's the direction I was going with that.
Again, like I said, that seems to contradict your original policy or principle, where you have stated that when you leave, we leave Africa, come here and want to continue being Africans.
I don't think I ever said that. I said I came to America to be an American, not a Nigerian.
Yeah.
My ancestry is still in place. My heritage is still in place. But you're not going to see me with a red cap, a walking stick, and dressed, that way.
So why do you want to shun your culture, but we want a street, a neighborhood that is Nigerian? What
I'm just saying, because what that gives to you is, like, remember, every politics is local. So if your city council member are looking for people to support them, then I said, hey, there are a bunch of Cameroonians here or Africans. If I can get through, because sometimes the number of votes it takes to win this thing, either we are running the ones to put our own people in office, or other people are saying, hey, I can get a block of votes. I can get 100 votes from these people to get on the city council or the school board or the county election. Now, with that, if they recognize that you were critical in them winning, they will come to you and say, hey, what can I do for you? What can I do with you? Okay. But if we are scattered, if you are all over the place, okay, like when I ran for mayor, a lot of Nigerians don't live in the city of Dallas, so they can't vote for me. They live outside. But if somebody who lives in Arlington, if you say, hey, where do you live? They say Dallas, because it would take some explanation to say, hey, I live in Arlington. But if you look at the Mexican and the Hispanic immigrant, they live in the urban area. That's why they're able to elect the people they elect. And that's why they're able to have the presence they have. We are the ones that go to the suburbs. And then when we go to the suburbs, oftentimes our presence is diluted, because we don't have the critical number of us in that area to influence anything. Because in fact, when I bought my house back in 1995, there were some houses vacant on my street. And I reached out to some Nigerians and said, hey, let's come and own this street. And they said no, but I thank God that they didn't move it, because if they have moved in, it would have been all one bed. It would have been party every Saturday, and they probably would not keep up with their lawn, and then devalue our homes. Because again, it's not just having your own people live there; it's also have to protect your investment. Okay, and so again, I make these observations. I'm in real estate, and I can tell you a house an African lives in most neighborhoods, because they're not going to keep up with, if they buy it new, they don't oftentimes put money in it to make the landscape or do other things, So these are things that Americans have as data, but we may think they don't. But remember, we are in an information society where they collect data on us, regardless of whether we know it or not.
So I think the point is well taken. Again, it's about making sure that we can congregate. But I mean, beyond just, okay, this is a problem. What are the issues? And I mean, what is it?
That's not a problem, actually, because some people are going to want to do it that way. But I'm just saying, when you've been to pedicure, manicure shops, or you see that. You know how much money that is in American GDP? That's about $60 billion. Those people do. Just cutting your nails and doing other things they do. So America has recognized them. So if you are from that part of Asia and you are looking for small business loan for that, they will give you loan, because it's like, it's a natural sector of business for your people. Okay. Just like, when you see a lot of Mexicans, Hispanic people do the construction, they have claimed that, you know what I mean? You see a lot of Indians now own a lot of hotels, or, the 3-star level, the mid-level hotels, a bunch of Indians own that. And that thing started way back in 1980s. All of a sudden, they've created a sector, and then the resources recognizes them, and they own it. You go look around in the hotel, what is it called, mid-level, 3-star Holiday Inn, La Quinta, is going to be owned by people either that they are Pakistanis or they are Indians. Everybody comes to America to corner a piece of it, based on what your own people may have that is considered comparative advantage. What is ours? Okay, we graduate well because we have to memorize those texts to take the test. But once you do that, then what? Where do we go to be employed? Do we have African Nigerian-owned businesses that are employing us? A lot of us, you go look at 100 Nigerians that are graduating college, less than 5% will be employed by businesses owned by Africans or Nigerians. They're going to go look for work somewhere else. So again, we give our own resources of capital, human capital, to other people, and we're hoping that they promote us into, corporate levels and stuff. Oftentimes, remember, for you to be in that corporate suite, the executive level, it's not just because of your PhD. You could be the best working guy. They'll pay you good salary, but they will not put you in the front office, because front office is where it is. So you have to get out and create your own kind of image. Remember this saying, we often say, I'm looking for a level playing field. So what I said is, why are you looking for a field somebody already leveled? Go find you your own field, level it, and play on it. That's America. That's why you have little Italy, little Mexico, little this, little that, because they didn't want to go play in somebody's level field. They go find their own field and then they play on it. And at times when they recognize you and invite you for dinner.
Right, but again, I don't think you are. I know it's a conversation we have had, because there are getting a playing field and clearing it, or getting a bush and clearing it to make it a playing field, is something that is also fraught with a lot of challenges, because the racist structures are in there and all that stuff.
Are we very kumbaya in Africa? Something made us leave. So, racism is fine. It's going to be there. And I say this with my wife. I say, God don't have issue with the colors he made us, the different shapes he made us. And in fact, we might piss him off one day and none of us will wake up. And when we do wake up, we just look like the same color. I don't know, because now it's brown, black, and white. Maybe we start looking green or purple. So nobody will now say racism. That thing is going to be there. Even during the time of Jesus Christ, it was everybody that, during that time was the kumbaya. There was still all kinds of things going on. I'm just saying, find you the people, your community, and create a system that works with you. It doesn't mean it has to be perfect. It doesn't mean it has to be better than that of anybody. It works for you guys. And that is going to come, by having the critical number. A critical number doesn't have to be the quantity. It has to be the quality. I should be able to do business with you regardless of whether you're Cameroonian, Ugandan, because we agree on principles and values and we know where we're going with this. And not to say, oh, I can do it, because of your ethnicity. There's still going to be people that do that. But like you said in your opening, a lot of Europeans came here and they became white people. So they've played down that Irish, Italian, blah blah blah. Because now you don't even see a white man say, "Are you Jewish? Are you Scottish? Are you Irish?" It doesn't matter. You just see a white man, except you are keying into their last names or surnames. You could say, okay, but the brand you see is white. But for the African, they want to push nationality or ethnicity, and it doesn't work very well in a country like America.
Yeah, I know we started off talking about Nigeria, but you also want to acknowledge, like I said, that you are a successful Nigerian. It's in the United States, and they're quite. I know recently there was an event celebrating the number of Nigerians who are within the Biden administration, isn't it? They are everywhere. They are doing well, and so I think.
Yeah, look, like I said, there's no facet of American government you get. But those people that you have in the government of Biden, I think number 2 in the Treasury Department is a Nigerian guy. There's a lady who leads the USTA. They are there. But my point again is those people are not in a position to influence anything particularly for Nigeria. Because if you have a strong Nigerian community, okay, business outside of the people who are working there, then they can do more based on the people that are in. But the guy who is in there is not going to be speaking, oh, for Nigeria. It's not going to. But it's the Nigerian community that can influence that. And not the one individual who happens to have been working there for a long time and rising through the system. Look, that Nigerians are successful in like most of these companies because they already fit into a structure. They are not changing the structure. It's not they are not there to change anything. They're just there to fit into what is in there already. Okay, so like when you go to a hospital, they say, "Oh, a Nigerian guy is doing well in the hospital," but can a Nigerian guy go run a hospital that is that big? It's the thing. Can you see a group of Nigerians say, okay, let's go own a hospital? It will be harder to do. But they can go into other hospitals and be very well, because they fit into a structure. And they want to prove that they are capable. But can they go from a bank and run and own a bank and, and do the things communities do? Immigrant groups that own, community banks. The community banks are your biggest access to capital for your own group of people. That's as opposed to going to the big ones. So that's why you see a lot of these Asian banks, before they borrow from their own bank, backed by the big banks. But for us, we go to the big banks.
Right, and I think that is very critical because for our communities, I think it's a problem. I'm baffled by the fact that in the entire United States, for all the years with African immigrants coming here, there is no community, at least I don't want to make a claim to something that I've not done enough research, but I don't think there's any African community that has a credit union. Yes, I don't know of any.
No, and there are laws. There are laws, both federal and state, that identifies those communities and said, hey, we want to help you create access to capital. But we're not showing up because we don't congregate like other immigrant groups. We don't. So if you want to study somebody, say, well, why Lambert is going to do it? And they're going to go do off. Instead of saying, hey, you know what? I don't have to like Lambert, but I respect what he's doing, and I'm going to rally behind him. And I'm going to do this, and we're going to create a structure. He may be the one who founded it, but he may not be the one who runs it. But the African people get into this rivalry and the envy and jealousy factor. That's why, how many redeemed church do you have in America? There are thousands of them. But guess who? The only person who has been redeemed in that church is the overseer. The 99% have not been redeemed. Okay? Because sometimes you go to this African church, there are only 20 people in that place in a hotel room, praying to Jesus. Because they don't want to build one big church. You see the hospitals in America. How many of them, a lot of the hospitals in America identify with religious organizations. Is it not Presbyterian, Methodist, Catholic? So why don't we have a redeemed hospital system in America? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because we haven't recognized how we can create a vehicle that becomes institutional as opposed to the individuals that we tend to worship.
So while I recognize the fact that you want to levy blame on the community itself, I think that you also point to the fact that the laws of the state and the country prevent this from coming through, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's not. In fact, one time I went to a pastor that in the Redeemed Church that I know. I said, hey, look, have you guys ever thought of having even a credit union or redeemed, community bank? You don't have to, identify as a church. You can use the same name, RCCG, bank. Who cares about what those letters stand for? Okay. And I said there are so many of you, and you all, because all of them are buying church buildings, and I said you could be your own financial institution. Of course, it's not going to be exclusive to your people, but you could be the directors. But you know what? The fear is that they will start giving loans to themselves, and they will crash the bank. It's just our thing. That's why you have 19 banks in America that is considered black owned. The last time in Dallas area that a black group owned a bank was when I just came to America. Sunbelt National. It went under, and since then they've run away. They have not formed another one. Black people in Dallas. And then in Dallas, there's about $5 to $10 billion deposits that are attributed to the black business people in Dallas Fort Worth area, but they have no community bank. The tiny Asian group that are here, they have one. Hispanic people have one. Everybody has. In fact, you go to a street here on Harry Hines, where is a lot of Asian businesses. They have like 5 or 6 banks there. You may go in there and see 1 or 2 customers, but they are operating, doing business for themselves. But we can do with our own people, because by the time somebody comes in and says, oh, I have a PhD in banking, or oh, I have a PhD in economics, oh, professor and engineer, they kill the purpose of the whole thing. So that's why we don't. I'm telling you, I observe these things, not because I want to be negative or downplay. They are successful individuals, but we don't have a community.
That's a very interesting point. We're successful individuals, but we don't have a community. And I want to welcome Mark. Mark says, never heard of Okpa, but love his perspectives and will continue to listen. Thank you, Mark, for joining. Mark is my classmate. So again, it is important, and I really want us to I know we did not plan this, but zero in on the banking thing, because I think it's one of those areas where we
really this is just an appetizer. We are going to the main course. Let's talk about the World Bank and the IMF, because I know,
Right. So again, I think it's part of this. The communities are not flourishing because we are tied to a system, and the system is not working to our advantage in a certain sense. And that's a good segue into the World Bank. We started off talking about the World Bank.
I don't want to blame the system, because the system is open. Look, in 2015, okay, I recognize that we don't even have African American community. And I went, I went to a legislator through another friend of mine, and we sponsored a bill that the governor, signed into law to encourage community banks. If you go to the African American community, again, the Black community, which is, we are largely underbanked. Okay, you go to those Black neighborhoods, what do you see? Payday loans, title loans, and those people for $100 they give you, they ended up with $600. I mean, it's a default service, because we don't have our own. So you walk and you go cash your check. They're going to take a bunch of money to cash your check. If you have your banks, you make a deposit, and then your bank might see your deposit here, all of a sudden they start extending you credit. But we don't. We don't have those institutions in our community. It's not that we don't have the education to run it. We just choose not to do it. Or we think the system is like it. No. The system started by recognizing certain people, but the system is open if you want to go in and push the envelope. That's why today you still have World Bank. You have, in Africa, they have what they call World Bank country directors. Okay? And they may have a group of countries that they look over. But you have your finance minister, you have your central bank governor, and then you still allow a World Bank country director. What is the education the World Bank director has? I'll give you an example. In Ghana, Ghana is having some challenges. Every country has. In America, we do have challenges. But the World Bank director for Ghana is somebody from the island of Seychelles. The island in the East Indian Ocean, southeast of Africa. Okay, he is the World Bank country director, and I read about his background, and I wanted to find out, what is glaring about his education. He went to some university in UK. He served in the country in Seychelles as finance minister, blah blah blah, trade and all that stuff. But now I guess when he left that job, he went to do this for World Bank, and he's over Ghana and some other African country that's close by. But here is the thing, Lombard. Okay, if you look at the exchange rate of Seychelles, okay, let's say you have 1 million of their money, which is called Seychelles rupee. I think they got, the rupees are Indian thing. Mm-hmm. So, 1 million of their currency. If you have that, you know how much money you get when you exchange that to the dollar? About $75,000. Okay, hold that number. If you have 1 million Ghana cedis, if you want to exchange it, you get about 95,000. So why is somebody from a country whose exchange rate is lower than cities telling them what to do? If you want to copy, when we were in school, if you want to copy, you copy from A students, you don't copy from C students. Because if you copy from a C student, what are you going to get? Lambert, you get B?
You end up with another C.
No, in fact, if you don't even end up with a C, you might head in the direction of a H. You know, there's a grade they call H. You know what H is?
No.
Horrible. So that means you haven't even failed. The instructor don't even want to give you F, because F means like, okay, it's like you are so bad you will get a H. Horrible. And so why should Ghana allow somebody from a country whose exchange rate to their own money to the dollar is lower than theirs? What is he telling them in Ghana? And I looked at this. I'm not picking on the guy. I'm just saying this is what goes on. You have your finance minister, you have your central bank governor, and then you are allowing a World Bank country director to come and look over your books and tell you what to do. At what time, like my mom used to say, how many times will something happen to you to wisen up? Africa should reject anything to do with World Bank. In fact, they should stop going to the World Bank to borrow money. If you need to consult them, they can become a consulting institution. Hey, here, you know what I mean? Going to a doctor. Okay, this is what's wrong with me, and the doctor can give you a prescription, and then you could consult with the doctor from time to time, but not for the doctor to move into your home and begin to tell you what kind of food you eat and how you eat that food. That's what is killing Africans. And until we wean Africans wean themselves from this milk they're sucking from World Bank, which they're not, they're even sucking the sour milk. You know, World Bank has been in Ghana since 57. Okay. The total loan they have done to that country is about $10 billion. So do the number. What does it amount to per year? Okay, and it's not a huge number. And then you have they have like 200 and something projects they've been financed. What are the Ghana Central Bank doing? What are the other banks in Ghana doing? You know what I mean? When you hire somebody, you want to look at their resume. What is in this guy's education that a Ghanaian doesn't have? To where, that was in 2017, I was visiting one of the Congos. While I was meeting with one of the prime ministers, they said, oh, next week, they're going to have a visit from the IMF and the World Bank. The whole country was panicking. The whole country thought Jesus is coming and he's not going to like them. And I couldn't believe it. I said, I live in DC. I mean, I live in US. We don't care about what those people say. But you see how an entire African leadership was captivated, afraid, because somebody from World Bank and IMF is coming to visit them. You think it's not control?
So again, I want to react to a couple of things, but first I want to push back on the fact that the qualifications of the person in Ghana. So this is an institution. It really doesn't matter where the person comes from. Okay, so whether it comes
if Ghanaians have a better education than this particular guy, and I'm saying, what is he going to tell them? Why is he there? You should not have a resident World Bank in your country. If there are certain things that are specific, because they don't control your budget, they have no hands in your currency. But if you allow them, there's this saying: he who allows ant into their home, you're going to be responsible for what they do to you. The best thing to do is not to allow it. And then if you want to consult it, we live in a global market. Okay, why is it that the World Bank is not telling US what to do?
No, I mean, I'm sure they do, but the appointment is
they don't. They're not allowed. No. The president of the World Bank cannot even testify. In fact, they don't even go to the house. The only place they go to, during their confirmation, in fact, they don't even get any confirmation. The president of America chooses whomever the president of the World Bank is. So they don't do, and they don't say a word about U.S. economy. If they say, yeah, go ahead.
Well, again, you remember that the G7 and the G20, they're all part of this network. But what I was going to say is, it's a global structure, isn't it? So take the current situation.
They're not a global structure because they only have influence in about very few countries. They don't. How much money does the World Bank lend every year? Okay, here is again, because I want somebody to challenge me. The World Bank money is not backed by U.S. Treasury. It's not. They go out and they sell bonds and they get money, and then they make a margin and sell to other countries. And go look at their history. Their lending capacity is less than $80 million for over 100 countries they have influence in. 80 billion, Lambert. Bank of America makes $1 billion loan a day. So why is Africa looking to World Bank?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take you over one thing that, remember, I'm going to globalization because that's where I am.
Okay,
fine. There's no way the African system is not going to succeed because everything is plugged into the system.
No, it's not plugging for everybody. It's not.
Well, of course, it's not plugged for everybody.
Wait a minute. When we use the World Bank, so why America is a deficit country? How much money has the World Bank lent to America? It's a deficit. You know what a deficit is? That is, they never have enough money, but they have enough confidence in their system that they can borrow from anybody. Okay, so it's a world. Okay, is America outside of this world? Maybe America is in Jupiter, so they are not part of the World Bank. I'm just saying we should not be confused by these institutions that are put in place. Remember when these institutions were formed? It was 1948. Apart from Egypt, that was independent in 1922. Most African countries were not. So you are now joining a country club that the charter, you have not even challenged the charter. You have just subscribed to it. So they now come in and look into your finances and tell you devalue your currency. You know about SAP. SAP,
yes, structural
adjustment. That's what nailed African countries back in the 80s. Because African countries' currencies were good, oftentimes stronger than the pound and the dollar. And they say, how are we going to deal with this? Because if they get monetarily powerful, we cannot control them. And boom, they introduce SAP. So what is SAP? You know the word SAP? Africa got sapped.
Okay, but that's my point. The point is rather, okay, how do you
challenge it? They have done it to you. No, say we're not going to do it anymore. We're not going to borrow from you, and we don't want to take your economic prescription. We have enough people in our community, in our country, that have the same education that you send in your country directors, and they're going to come up with a solution. Sometimes, what thing African people don't have, and the entire black race, the word is one word: bluff. Bluff, Lambert. If you have a PhD in economics and the internet, what is it called? Those people who have a PhD in international, whatever, politics or whatever they call it. I don't know. I didn't go to school, so I don't know what those things are. but what I'm saying is nobody gets a degree in bluff, but it's a very critical attitude to have. When you look at that somebody and say, sir, we're not going to do it. That's what Lee Kuan Yew did for Singapore and took Singapore to where it is. He told the British Exchequer, you know what the British Exchequer is? It's like the Central Bank of UK. He said, we're not going to do this anymore. The divorce is final. I am going to go find me a new relationship. Didn't I tell you this the other time? If you want to make your ex jealous, go find you a better partner. But if you go get somebody who is uglier than who you left behind, they say, look at it. What Africans have done is they have gone back to the same people that have kept them where they are, trying to plead and find a prescription and solution from them. And that's why you're getting what you're getting. It's about time you tell them, say, we're not going to do it. 54 African countries, the largest number of countries in a continent. Is it the largest?
Yeah.
Okay? 28% of UN membership that's more than a quarter, is Africa. What are you getting out of it? 15 minutes of fame? You could have done that by Zoom and face your country issues. Instead, they take an entourage every time to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And spend money. And then so that their village people will chat, oh, look at the educators at the UN. He's waving. What is UN? No, for real. What is UN? They have the UNDP. They say millennium goal. And so, is this something that you and I could not come up with? Why do we have to go to them to tell us that we need water resources? We need to build roads. We need to have securities. We need to have things that uplift, the standard of living. Why? Why do we need to do that? I can understand when we're colonized, but now, heck no. What school did they go to? What university are they coming with their paper?
So again, my whole point is, which country is going to be able to call the bluff and survive?
That's why that's why when people want to deal with you, they take advantage of your weakness. So we have shown that weakness. We have shown it. That's what I'm saying. Where's the bluff? If I were to be, remember I said this, I don't want the job, and if you offer it to me, I'm not going to do it. If I were to be the president of an African country, anybody that shows up from the World Bank and IMF, I would turn them off. In fact, they will not show up. Because I would say, what school are you, what prescription are you putting on the table that my own people cannot figure out? Put that question to them. Your currency is a sovereign right of yours. Only you can allow for it to be devalued. It's like I come to your house and I like the shirt you are wearing. And then you like my shirt. I said, okay, Lambert, I'll take your shirt, but not only will I take your shirt, I'm going to take your trousers, and I'm going to take any other fabric you have, because your shirt is not up to the one I have. And you said, oh, okay, that's fine. That's what is going on. You have allowed your currency to be devalued, and that has weakened your purchasing power. That's how weaken your ability to compete. You can't fund your military. You can't fund your social services. They come in there every time and say, oh, we're going to go do water borehole in African countries. And then once they come in, they sing a well. And then, the president or minister for water comes up and the water gushes for a few minutes. Once the camera is turned off, the well goes dry. Is it not what is going on? And okay. We are happy about that.
Yeah, well, the other thing I want to say is an abuse does not take away a use, isn't it? But I really think that while I agree with you that we need to think through, the system in itself has been put in such a way that 70 years plus, it becomes difficult for people to decode.
No, it's not difficult. If you wake up one day and you don't like your wife or your husband, if you don't say, oh, I need to stay in this for the sake of the babies, because the kids are going to grow up and abandon the two of you. You say, honey, hey, this thing ain't working. I'm moving on. You have to be able to make those decisions, and that's what I say, bluff.
You are talking about it's easy for the man and the woman, but even then when you go to
the same attitude.
I mean, when you go to a divorce court, they are looking for what property, isn't it?
So you know what? Like you say, honey. No. You say, honey, take it.
Yeah, but you owe them.
You owe who?
These countries owe the World Bank, and they owe all these people around. How do you call them?
No. Again, I'm giving you the functions. The World Bank lending, every year they lend money to countries, and I've told you how much total they do. It's not more than 80 billion. Go Google it. World Bank lending capacity is out there. Okay, and they lend it to as many countries that still come to them for solution. Okay, so that number is there. I'm just saying, why should Nigeria of 200 million people, Cameroon with 30 or so million people, still go to the World Bank? When you have now Cameroonians, Nigerians, Kenyans, Tanzanians who have gone to every Ivy League school, every business school, every finance institution, they have figured out how money works. Why is your own money not working? Is what I'm saying. It's because they want to devalue you, they want to weaken you, and once they weaken you, they don't have to do it with a gun. They don't have to have a gun in your head. They just make your currency worthless, and then you start to, play there. You know what happens when the currency of a country is worthless? You lose your skill set. That's why everybody wants to leave the continent. Because now, for you to run industries, you need people that are skilled to run it. So if your doctors and your engineers are fleeing because they're going to make more money getting paid 40,000 or 50,000 pounds in England, when if they are back home, they will get 10,000. They say, I gotta go, and I will send money back home. They're encouraging us to do remittances. Remittances don't build economy. Foreign direct investment builds economy. So they're encouraging people to go work for these other Western, institutions, and then you send money home, and your people will come out. Lambert, I'm sure they've given you a chieftaincy title in Cameroon, because when you show up, because you have sent so much money, people are happy for you. That's not what is going to develop that economy. What's going to develop is that the people there are gainfully employed, the people are invested in, and they fall and they get up, and not to sit down and wait for somebody in Washington, D.C. to tell them this is what to do. You can never get out of that situation if you depend on somebody else coming in there with their generosity and their benevolence. Benevolence don't build countries. Institutions do, and they have to be agency. So the Africans have refused to take the bold step, and then as they are taking that bold step, have the bluff and tell us, no, sir, we're not going to do that. I was in Enugu where I was born. One time, some people were there, at the Catholic stuff, having a conference and talking and that with the former Nigerian Minister of Finance who's passed away now, Chukwukongo, and all these villagers look like, again, during the slave time, they were there to look at who they're going to point and say, go to the ship, we'll ship you out. So when they were done, I got up and I asked the question. I asked the white people that are there, I said, what city in America are you from? They said this. I said, what have you done in your community to come here to lecture Africans on how to do their thing? The whole room was quiet. I said, no, you tell me. Say you get a job with some of this international group, USAID, World Bank, you come here and look. I said, you tell me what you have done in America. I said, I live in Dallas. I can tell you what I have done. And everybody's kept quiet. Africans don't know how to ask the people that are standing in front of them questions. I mean, what are you telling me? How to build roads? Look at Lambert. He has a degree in civil engineering. It's because the leadership is not recognizing Lambert to say, we go build that road. You may build the first one bad, but you know what? The subsequent one, we're going to improve on it. Instead, they're looking for contractors from Germany, from Italy, from everywhere to come build them the roads. So how are you going to develop your local skill set if you're not giving your people opportunity to build infrastructure that actually is going to benefit them? Infrastructure is like exercise. It benefits the person who is doing it. When you're exercising, it doesn't transfer to anybody else but you. So when you build infrastructure, it benefits the country. And you don't need to go to anybody to build your road, your water system. That engineering is copy and paste. But do you have the will to paste? Or do you want to settle for boreholes? And then, somebody flies in from, World Water Save My People thing. And they put in, don't you see that thing, water gushes and the villagers are giving buckets to take something and they clap. And they take that video and come to the Western world and tell them, look at the Africans. Geez, I live in Dallas. I can talk about water system, the law behind the utility, how the water, I told you, we have 72-inch pipe bringing water into Dallas. 70 is 60 feet. If you stand in that pipeline, it will be crushed. And how are we getting water? We're pumping it in, they're called raw water. And then we go in and we treat it and we distribute it everywhere. Did we get it from World Bank? Did we ask them to put money in it? It's a utility. It's a commodity. If you go home today, if your water doesn't run, you freak out. Huh? Because you won't wash your toilet, you won't take a bath, you won't do a whole lot. In fact, you just feel like, oh, what the heck? You could deal with light being out, but if the water is not running, you're going to freak out. So why are Africans living without water? Waiting for World Bank, and they say World Bank assists in a water scheme. What is a scheme? What is a scheme? We should
just to see that it has worked in other countries, so
no, it has not worked. I don't know of any country that has been successful because of World Bank. I'm looking for that example. I don't know of any country.
I mean, if you are talking about the country as a whole, there are projects that they have done in countries that have worked.
There's no, I said maybe in other places they're a little more careful, but in Africa, tell me which African country has become successful because of World Bank borrowing and lending or World Bank economic prescription. Tell me the country. Come on, we know that.
You want to take the current example of the debt situation in Zambia, where
debt is good. Debt is good. It depends on debt is good. It depends on how you manage it.
Right, but I don't think in this sense it was meant to be for the repayment, and it's thanks.
No. Remember when Clinton was in office? Okay, Brazil had a bunch of debt, either from World Bank or something, and they found out that hey, this thing is choking us, and they said we're not going to pay. Clinton pleaded with them and said, "Oh, please don't do this because if somebody else might copy you and do it, you have to bluff." Okay, if somebody lent you money in America, don't we call what they call debt, predatory debt? Somebody lends you
predatory loans.
Yeah. Yes, somebody lends you money that they know is going to choke you. If you find that out, you say, "Hey, the terms and conditions you lent me this money, you took advantage of me. We're not going to pay." You know what Brazil told them at that time? He said, "You bring a U-Haul to Brazil and take it to Washington, D.C. Come on, we help you move it." Bluff. Every country is going to have debt. What matters, debt is actually an asset because it's a future income. Because when people are paying you, just like our homes, when you take a debt on your mortgage, you pay back. But if somebody gave you more money than your home is worth, they are choking you. And that's why you see a whole lot of all these lawsuits. So how come all those African countries haven't filed a lawsuit against the World Bank in the International Court of Justice and say, hey, you guys took advantage of us. These terms and loans are not good working for us. We're not going to pay it. Or we're going to renegotiate it to suit our own ability to pay.
Yeah, but you are giving the impression that the World Bank is something that is outside. There are Africans who are members of the World Bank. Is it not?
No. You are a membership in something that is choking you, Lambert. You want to belong. You belong to where you're going to survive or thrive. You're not going to belong to where you're going to be subdued. You don't submit to be subdued. Even in relationship, you don't marry a woman who's going to tell you you tie the wrapper, she wears the pants. Huh? You don't want to do that because if you submit, you get subdued.
Well, I just believe that the cake has been cooked already or baked, if you want, and it's difficult to unravel. Because there are many African countries that have gone beyond to China, and it has not been any different, isn't it? Well, that's why I gave you the example of Zambia.
I like the example you are giving me. You know, if you run it constantly, you know, east or west, home is the best, east or west. When are you going to stop running? I said, you know what? I'm going to do it by myself. That's what Singapore did. There are examples of people who have defied these institutions to be successful. In fact, when you defy them is when they want to come to you and talk. But when you still going to them, like I said, what economic model is somebody in World Bank going to know better than me on how to, you know, have suggestions for Nigeria or any Africa? I want to see that World Bank expert. I want to have a debate with him or her. Put it on. But I don't have the power. I'm not in leadership. But the people that are in that leadership, they are the ones that are making it bad for their own people. They don't know how to recruit. They rather go recruit somebody who was an ex-World Bank or ex-finance. Recruit your own. You have enough people from Africa, various African countries that are in America now. Go recruiting them. Don't tell them, come on home. Recruit them. Tell us what we are doing differently. You know, what is that part of the Bible? They said no prophet has honor.
Yeah, in their own land.
Okay. Whoever put that in the Bible looked at the black race. Because the black race is the only race that don't have honor for their own. They think somebody else. That's why a lot of people go around in the churches and they still see an image of Jesus of a man who has a long beard. How many Africans have long hairs and long beards? Because it's an image. That's what you're worshiping. And so that has made us say, oh, because the Bible said it. No prophets Aaron. We don't have to recognize our own. Let's go recognize the prophet of the Lebanese, the prophet of the Indians, the prophet of the Chinese, the prophet of the white man, the prophet of anybody else but our own. That's what we have done. We take the readings or the verses in the Bible literally, not figuratively. Because the Jews will respect them, listen to their own prophet. The Asians, of course, everybody except for the Africans say, oh, no prophet has only. You know, the Bible said, who wrote the Bible? Who? If you say God wrote it, give me the manuscript and the printing press where it was put.
No, I mean, again, you and I will get into the Bible someday. I don't want to get into
that. I love it. I read it when I was 17, and I said I will never read it again because I got it. You know, one time when I just came to US, some pastor, you know, in America, they ask you, are you a Christian or something? So a pastor met me in a bookstore, and as we were talking, he said, hey, are you born again? And I looked at him, I said, no. He said, why? I said, my mom said she's not going to have me twice. I said, born is a biological thing. My mom was very literal, and she said, you're not coming through this womb again. Okay, so one time is enough. So when I read the Bible, it was one time. I got it. I'm not flipping back pages anymore. I got what I want out of it. So this born again thing, look, like I tell people, they said, they just said Jesus died for our sins. Is that not what it is? Died. They didn't say he will die. He died already. So I'm free to continue. I don't go to confession. Because what am I confessing? Somebody has already paid for my sins.
That's a terrible thing. I hope we have to pray for you.
No,
But
no, no,
let's,
no.
let's get
The Pope has already said he needs prayer. So
so let's get back to
yeah, the world,
the World Bank and IMF, because
yeah.
I think that is important to recognize. That is why this week there has been a lot of talk about, the financial systems, the markets are so interconnected that what happens in one leads to, and that
It has
your point
always
is
been
well
like that.
taken. Yeah, your point is well taken, because the financial crisis was something that was happening in America and in Europe, but that ended up tearing apart the entire system, and everybody has to now be readjusting. And you're asking countries to call the bluff, and I find it's a big challenge, and I don't know how that is even possible.
Because somebody created that. You go read the book. I told you, I don't know where they got it, from Sig to Silicon. All this international financing, it came by default. So some, Jewish guy, Rothschild, who didn't even finish school, lending money to people, all of a sudden it becomes something everybody learned. When you trade, if I'm trading with you, nothing can be that very powerfully as an example. If I'm trading with you, the focus is you and I, is it not? What do you have that I need, or what do you need? You need from me. We could do it by barter, or we can do it by whatever medium of exchange, which is what money is doing now. Okay, so I'm just saying, I like your shirt. Okay, fine. Well, I've had this shirt. I don't want to give it up. Okay, fine, but I can give it up in exchange of. What's the definition of money? For exchange of goods and services. So if I'm exchanging my own goods and services at my own detriment, I have been taken advantage of. Pure as simple. And that's taken advantage of is come by the devaluation of my own currency. You're telling me my shirt is not worth $1. It's only worth $1 if I give you my shirt and my vest and maybe my earring or any future income I'm going to produce. And then you said it's okay. No. The Africans don't have to sell anything to the world. Sell to yourself. That's why they have the African free trade something. But because Africans are the least partners, these countries that trade with each other, they want to sell something to outside. They want to say, what am I selling to Europe? What am I selling to America? But you're not selling to the man in Cameroon, and the man in Cameroon not selling to the man in Congo or thereabout. But let's produce a banana and go sell to Europe while we are starving. Because when you do that, your commodity price may be devalued by somebody. Say, your potatoes don't want anything. It's worth £1. And then when we buy it, we give you IOU as a credit because you're going to import now potato chips. Remember? You get the raw potato and then you buy the potato chips, which is going to cost you more money.
Right. No value added on.
No value added. Yes, so why don't you just do as I forget you? I'm going to sell to my neighbor. And I'm going to see whether my neighbor wants me to produce potato chips. And I do it that way. So the world international, whatever, is all some people sit in a computer and they start to write up all these things. Does the money vanish? If that was $1 billion in the economy last year trading, why is it today less? Because some people are writing about these things, shaking up the consumer confidence. When some people say, I don't want to do anything now, I'm going to hold on to my money. That's all it takes for you to shrink an economy. But I'm just saying, the Africans, have you read that Lomé convention, of early 70s? Go Google it, where they say, you Africans don't have to produce anything, just ship us the raw material. And African countries signed up on. Okay, fine. 50 years ago. Afterwards, no, we're going to avoid that agreement. Remember the Native Americans in America? There were treaties America signed with Native America. Some of them are not being enforced. Some of them say, we're not going to renegotiate it. So you don't have to be tied to an agreement that is making you a failure. You shouldn't, as a nation. Even we as an individuals, when you borrow so much money, don't you have a choice in America of bankruptcy, chapter 7 or chapter 13? Africans should say that. We need reorganization. Okay, leave us alone. Either you write down the loan. In fact, we don't even want to acknowledge the loan because you know what I mean? Those are the bluffs. And nothing is wrong with you. You have to defend yourself. If the World Bank is doing something good, fine. But so far, as an African who has more than 50 years of existence on this earth, who also knew about them before I came to America, I want them to show me what is good about what they've been doing in Africa. Show me an example. Show me a water system that is running in an African country that is financed by the World Bank. Show me a road, a power system. Show me a hospital system. You won't find that example, but there are debts.
So again, I think that you are shooting the wrong person in terms of the fact that I know that there are projects in Africa that have been financed, but when you finance those projects and the country itself is not running it properly, why do you want to blame the World Bank?
No.
When the World Bank gives money to a country,
because sometimes they don't even give you enough money to finish the project.
I mean, I think you ask for a certain amount of money, and the money is given to you.
They tell you what you can borrow, and you settle for it. I'm just saying, a water system is a constant debt. You don't have to pay it off. Okay? You go to a city where you live, they have debt, but you know what? Every month people are paying on those water, and they're paying back the debt, and they have enough in the system to keep the capital improvement going. So we don't have to pay off the debt. We just have to keep paying it on. That's why you have debt and deficit. When Africans have deficit, what happens to their currency? Boom, is devalued. And then you start scrambling, oh, what are we going to do? You don't have to. You print money. You go in and crank in your printing press, and you pay your people, and you tell them, spend it win here. Okay? You spend it. Look, in Cameroon, I'm not picking on Cameroon, but just as an example, do you have 5,000 miles of well-built roads in Cameroon? Built by Cameroonian engineers. And you have Cameroonian engineers who are probably professor of civil engineering. Who can say anything about that?
So the problem in Cameroon is different.
Huh?
The problem in Cameroon is different. You know why?
But the problem in Nigeria is different. The problem in America is different.
No, the problem in Cameroon is different because in Cameroon, you have a bunch of kleptocrats and kleptomaniacs who have all decided that they are going to enrich themselves. So it's not a problem. The World Bank.
Welcome to the club. Nigeria is like that. Ghana is like that. Every African country is that. All people want to do is to become somebody in government, and then all of a sudden they are something. Yeah, but I'm just giving you an example, because if the roads in Cameroon are built by Cameroonians or Nigerians or Zambians, then you have enough local skill set, and you pay them in your local currency. You don't have to pay them in dollar or pound. You pay them in your local currency, and they use that local currency to pay on their mortgage, to pay for the school fees for their kids, to pay for every other thing they are spending money on, and is circulating the money. You don't have to borrow from anybody. 80% of what you need to build road in every country is resident in that country. You don't have. In fact, you can bring in a technical expert and give them a contract. Okay, 5 years, 10 years, help us figure these things out. You don't have to go using that construction company to do it. You build your own.
So I don't think you and I are going to agree on your suggestion today, calling the bluff. It's a good idea. It's a wonderful thing, but I think that is kind of, given the realities on the ground, it's difficult for that to happen. Yeah. Because even with the currency thing,
the emperor is as good as the people in the empire keep saying, Your Majesty. The emperor, if everybody in the empire say we don't want you, who is he going to be emperor for?
I'm looking at the African country that can call the bluff in terms of just.
They can't, because that's why they fragmented them. Nigeria is a lousy giant of Africa because it has a lot of internal issues. South Africa is still standing because there are a bunch of white people there and they can't, turn it. Is it Kenya? No, is it Ghana? You have to say who is the go-to man in Africa. Then the African Union, I don't even know what it is they do. And then you have the ECOWAS community for the West Africa, and then you have the Central Africa, you have SEDAC, you have the East African community. There is no lion in this den. There is no lion in they're all a bunch of, I don't even know what I'm going to call them. But there's no lion. And then the people in the Northern Africa, America has been very crafty to say, oh, you now belong to the Middle East.
Yes, Sub-Saharan Africa.
And Sub-Saharan Africa. And then those people say, oh, when it's convenient, we claim Africa. But when it's not, we are looking towards our brother across the Mediterranean Sea or the Arabian Sea or whatever. It's a craft. It's a crafty kind of relationship, but that's fine. There are 49 other African countries in the sub-Saharan Africa. Can you guys mobilize? Can Lambert, from Dakar, Senegal, okay, across to Cameroon, Yaoundé, is maybe 2,000 miles. If you build a Trans-West African highway by African engineers, you open up that country for tourism, even let Africans go see that. How many Cameroonians have visited other African countries? It's always us leaving the continent, just like when we're being traded as slaves. We are living. We are not going to the foreign African countries like we're in Europe. You could be in Switzerland, and you are 8 miles from France, and they over here you are driving across borders, you're spending money, you are enjoying the nature and enjoying each country. But we don't even do it in Africa, because to cross from Cameroon to Nigeria, which used to be NCNC, National Congress of Nigeria and Cameroon, way back in the 50s until independence, that has been destroyed. But it's the same people, but just an international boundary, especially on the western part of Cameroon and then the eastern part of Nigeria. That's why you have the English. Cameroon is like the Canada of Africa. English and French. If somebody did that, but look at Canada today. They still were able to do what? To use that French and English to do something we do. So it's not like, the division is bad for us. We just haven't learned how to make the division work.
That's a conversation we're going to take up next week. I don't want to talk about Cameroon because of some other things, but again,
example, because I know you're a native Cameroonian. I mean, I'm a native Nigerian, but I'm an American by choice.
Right. So again, I want to thank you. I think I should put up the article you wrote last week. Blood Doesn't Lie. Mm-hmm. That's where we started off, and then maybe next week we'll look at what happened this week, because the meetings just started. There are a couple of things that I'll check.
Nothing's going to happen. You know what? A lot of these people are flying in. Okay, they fly in maybe how many hours, and they go to this meeting and they are dozing off. I have been to those meetings watching them. A lot of them are sleeping. Okay. And then they're looking for lunch and dinner. It's a 2 or 3 day thing. It's not a weekend thing. By Friday or Saturday, a bunch of them are flying back. What could you have gotten out of this? To be honest, a bunch of people come on the big screen and put up something for Africa. How are we going to lend you money? How are we going to have concession loans? How are we going to be all this? I said, to hell with your money. I'm already entitled to my own sovereign currency. I'm going to make it work. Okay, if you're going to lend me money, you're going to lend it to me on my terms and conditions, and I'm not taking it. If you make that statement, you don't have to wait for everybody to do it. If you make that statement, you'll be amazed the sort of reputation you're going to have. Because now, remember, in the Bible, a man had 100 sheep, and then one is missing. Huh?
Yes.
He went looking for the one. He could have walked away with 99. What does that tell you? One is critical. You have to be bold enough to say, I'm getting out of this wilderness, and they will come.
Okpa, thank you very much. I am very appreciative of your time. And again, as usual, these are conversations we have every Wednesday. We're talking about international development, African development. And today we are looking at the World Bank and IMF. Any closing words?
Well, relationship is what it is. It's relationship on the international global level are looked upon as two things: bilateral, two people; multilateral, everybody more than two. Okay, we are in that. Countries are not entirely independent. We need something from each other. Economics touches on that. What is your comparative advantage? What are you going to look for? And when you do that, you are creating a trade or a monetary system, but it has to be on the exchange. Remember the definition of money: exchange of goods and services. As I say, money is a legal tender. So what am I tendering for? Exchange of goods and services. And I cannot do it at the expense of the seller or the buyer. Okay? The seller should not have to be squashed by the buyer to where you are being starved and you are being impoverished. So they do it one time. My mom, again, she was the professor of the dean of my life lessons. She said, how many times will something happen to you for you to wisen up? What needs to happen to us Africans or the black race to wisen up? We're not in the banking sector. We're not in the politics that drives this economy. We're looking for transactions, but we are not transforming. We get in the transactions, but we are not transforming. Again, the critical things every country needs cannot be more than what? Power, water, road, public safety. We don't need any lecturer from World Bank and IMF to teach us that. We don't. Maybe when we were enslaved, remember when we were colonized, we are still fighting war for these people in Europeans who haven't gotten their house together. We're still going there to go fight for them. That tells us that we are a weak people. Because if somebody is coming to your home to destroy your home, but their own home is not in order, you say, oh, God, what are you telling me? Germans and French and English, we are all fighting. So what are you teaching me? Instead, we are putting uniform for them. And once the World War ended, remember this, Lambert? Once the World War ended, America rebuilt Europe. Did they rebuild Africa? They set us with World Bank. Yeah, they rebuilt Europe because the Europeans who came to America became white people. They rebuilt Europe. 15 years after the war ended, Europe was back, up and running, and they've been getting support. For us, who went and fought on their behalf? What did we get? Did we even get a medal? Did we even get an acknowledgement? Have you ever read anything about the World Bank and the World War that mentioned the African soldiers that fought in it? So they keep doing this. So my passing word again is this: don't submit to be subdued. Anytime you're in a relationship and you find that relationship is going to take advantage of you, maybe the first year you play ignorant. The second year you should wake up and say, heck no, I'm out. I'm not doing it. If it's God that gave us life, come on, God. On the judgment day, God ain't telling anybody where they're going, to hell or heaven. Has anybody ever gotten a text message from and say, hey, I'm in heaven or hell? So we don't even know what the judgment, but I'm just saying, while we are on earth, we should live a life that we are unapologetic about. We will respect other people, but if other people don't respect us, we take it. We withdraw that respect. Respect has to be earned, and it has to be reciprocated. Right now, Africa is not being respected because we are willing to submit and we're getting subdued. That is the word I want to leave with you. And next time, bring the fire, because I'm not bringing the fire service to put it out. Let it burn.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. And I hope you enjoyed the conversations this evening. Continue sending us questions, suggestions. Subscribe to the Lambom Show on YouTube. Again, until then, I'll see you next week. Thanks and bye-bye.
Thank you.